This is the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. How we doing today on this Monday? Thanks, everybody, for watching us, the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. You're watching us on the Bama Central YouTube channel, or you're watching us on my own social media machines at Joe Gaither 6 on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. We appreciate everybody for liking, subscribing, rating, reviewing, downloading the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or on Amazon. You can always jump in on the show on the social media machines at Joe Gaither 6. Leave us a comment, question, query, or complaint. What are we going to do today on a Monday? What are we, 40 days? Oh my gosh, 40 days away from Alabama kicking it off against Western Kentucky. And what we will do today is continue to present some of our SEC Media Day interviews. We have already presented our interview with head coach Kalen DeBoer. You can find that on the Bama Central YouTube channels or on the podcast channels that we just outlined. We already presented our interviews with Malachi Moore and with Tyler Booker. Again, same places. Today, we're going to start with some of the media interviews. I interviewed a handful of media guests, some of them you know from the show, and a couple that you don't know. So we're going to have a lot of fun by presenting two of those interviews today. We're going to present our interview with Michael Brauner from WNSP 105.5 in Mobile. And we're also going to present our interview with Brooks Austin. Brooks Austin writes for Bulldogs on SI, formerly Dogs Daily. He's a part of the On SI network, and you guys check out his show all the time for his recruiting intel. So those will be the two media interviews that we'll have today, and I'll have a little segment in between really highlighting my picks, my SEC preseason picks. We talked about it on Friday's show about kind of the preseason polls, but I realized when I listened to it back that I did not give you my list 1 through 16. We talked a lot on Friday about the preseason first, second, and third teams and how it affected Alabama, 16 guys selected, but I didn't really talk about my picks, my 1 through 16 picks, so we'll go over that and discuss it. Before we do that, though, we want to thank Derek Daniel from State Farm. Derek Daniel is your local State Farm agent. You can find him right up there on Highway 69 North, 4604 Highway 69 North in Northport, Alabama. 35473. Call him today for your home, life, and auto insurance needs. Look, insurance is not fun to deal with. I know that. I have a little aversion to it myself, but Derek makes it very, very easy. Derek makes it so easy. He'll be relatable to you as he's a Brookwood native. He's lived in Tuscaloosa all his life. He knows where to send your car. He knows who to come repair your home. He knows everybody in town. So if you need home, life, auto insurance, you can call him at 205-758-3391. We've been big on the renter's insurance over the last couple of weeks because your students, your kids are probably moving from apartment to apartment, and he can take care of you with your renter's insurance as well. I think it's very important for you guys and girls with apartments, or if you're just renting a home, to have renter's insurance because that covers your actual items in your apartment, in your home as you're renting. So call him at 205-758-3391. And we appreciate Derek Daniel for sponsoring the program. So what we're going to do, we're going to start it off with my friend Michael Brauner. And a lot of this episode is going to be centered around the University of Georgia because Brooks Austin covers the Georgia Bulldogs. But Michael Brauner, I got to give him a lot of credit. And you're going to follow him at M. Brauner, WNSP. Michael Brauner and I had dinner last Monday night, and we talked about, Georgia Day is tomorrow. Who's going to ask Kirby Smart about the driving incident? Who's going to ask Kirby Smart about the cars, about everything that's going on in Athens? And we've talked about that at length on the program before. Well, Michael Brauner, he was out there with really, really bold, and he was the one who asked Kirby Smart about it. So I'm going to start with the Kirby Smart clip, giving Michael Brauner his props, and then we'll play the interview with Michael Brauner. We'll have our discussion about SEC preseason picks 1 through 16. Where did I have Alabama? Where do you have Alabama? Put in your comment at Joe Gaither 6. We'll run through our picks, and then we'll finish the show with our new friend, Brooks Austin. So here's Michael Brauner putting Kirby Smart's feet to the fire. And Michael, I cannot tell you how proud I am of you for doing this.
Michael Brauner, WNSP in Mobile. The AJC report said that there were 24 driving-related arrests and incidents surrounding Georgia football since that January 2023 tragedy. Why does this keep happening, and what are you specifically doing to address it?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is disappointed. Anytime you have a situation like that, you want your kids, your players, to make better decisions. And I always say you can't be outcome related, and I'm very disappointed in the outcomes, but I am very pleased with our process we've put in terms of education, driver safety, requiring defensive driving, education, talking about it, having leaders stand up and talk about it, bringing speakers in and talk about it, suspending players, dismissing players, which we've done. I don't know to this point any coach in college football that suspended a player for a driving citation. We have. And we've also dismissed players based on driving citations. Nobody's done that. So hopefully they get the idea and the information, but we have a really good locker room, and I feel really good about that. Like, I love the players we have. I love the locker room we have. We have good kids. We got 45 kids yesterday battling breast cancer golf tournament to raise money. So we got kids that go to Camp Sunshine, the entire team, do a lot of good things, but not representative of what we want when they make mistakes like that.
That was Michael Brauner really asking Kirby Smart, and honestly, Kirby gave a great answer. You'll hear more about that in our interview with Brooks Austin, and so we'll do that towards the end of the show. But here was my time with Michael Brauner from WNSP over at SEC Media Days. Again to the Joe Gaither Show, right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. We're proudly presented by Derek Daniels State Farm Insurance. Call him today, 205-758-3391 for all your home, life, and auto insurance needs. I'm here with Michael Brauner. You hear him every day at 105.1 WNSP down in Mobile.
It's 105.5. I
do that every time. It's 105.5 WNSP down there in Mobile, the Sound of Mobile app. And make sure you follow him on the Twitter machine at mbraunerWNSP. Michael, we had a lot of fun this morning talking about Alabama football. It's Alabama Day. Nick Saban not picking Alabama. He picked Texas and Georgia to be his SEC championship game. Why do you think he did that?
I think he did that because it's the most obvious prediction for the SEC championship. I'm not going to be shocked if Alabama or Ole Miss or even Missouri makes the SEC championship, but if there's an easy pick to get, he either picks Alabama and gets called a homer, or picks Georgia and Texas, and they say, "Oh, Nick Saban didn't pick Alabama." Well, why would he pick Alabama? 80% of the media members here in the picks are going to pick Georgia and Texas, which may or may not be the case. I don't have any issue with it. They asked Jalen Milroe about it in there. He said, "Oh, what did he say?" And he didn't know, and then they told him, and he said, Coach. And then Tyler Booker as well. They asked him. He said, I'm not going to take any criticism from a guy who plays golf every day anymore. Of course, he was joking. But, funny stuff. It produced some great content with Saban picking Georgia and Texas for sure.
Absolutely. And it's going to be a huge season. Kalen DeBoer, first season in charge. You flip from a defensive head coach to an offensive head coach. Jalen Milroe, second-year starter. What's your biggest question, either offense or defense, for this Alabama team this year?
I think how well the defense translates from the Saban to the DeBoer era is going to be my biggest question. I know Milroe is going to at least take a step as a passer. He took steps throughout the season last year, and now he has an offensive-minded head coach for the first time in his career and a better offensive coordinator. Frankly, I think Sheridan is an upgrade from Reese, but it almost doesn't even matter because DeBoer is there. Reese could still be the offensive coordinator, but DeBoer is there. And DeBoer did share a nugget that Sheridan's going to be calling the plays, which is interesting. I'm sure he'll have a lot of input. But anyway, on defense, obviously, for 17 years, Alabama, for the most part, is known for the hallmark of fantastic defense. And Saban even brought it up. We talked about it this morning. The inexperience of the defensive backs is a little bit of a concern. The depth of linebacker was something that you brought up as well. If one of Deontay Lawson or Jihad Campbell were to get hurt, it gets a little dicey there. Going into a stadium like Neyland, and Tennessee, Josh Heupel's always going to have a good offense. Now all of a sudden he has an elite quarterback again. At least we think so. Those are the kinds of games that there will be. I'm confident in the DeBoer era, more confident than I was when he was first hired. 100%. He's proved it on the recruiting trail to me, and we know he can coach in game. But Washington really couldn't stop a nosebleed on defense last year. And yes, he has a better roster, and I feel good about Kane Womack and all that. But I think there are going to be some games this year where it's apparent that, all right, Nick Saban's not here anymore, and things are going to be leaky on defense, a little bit at least.
All right, so we heard from the University of Georgia yesterday, and we enjoyed that right here at SEC Media Days in Dallas. We're hanging out with Michael Brauner. You're following him at Brauner at WNSP on the Twitter machine, 105.5, the Sound and Mobile down WNSP. You put Kirby Smart's feet to the fire yesterday. I chickened out in the main media room asking about, what's going to change with the Georgia-Alabama rivalry. He said nothing.
Yeah.
It's all going to be the same. But you stepped up, and I'm proud of you. So
I
tell
appreciate
the people, really, one, what your question was, and two, how Kirby Smart answered all the driving issues in Athens.
If there's any question as to the presence that Kirby Smart has and the power vacuum at the top of the SEC, and specifically this event, there is none. I was shaking a little bit asking Kirby Smart the question about the driving, but I couldn't believe it that no one asked him in the main meter. I was shocked. I thought it was going to be the first question he was asked. So I said, all right, I'm going to go into this little room, and if I get a question in, I'm just going to ask him point blank, why does this keep happening, and what are you specifically doing to stop it? And, again, we talked about this morning. I don't want to say he's done all that can be done, but and he went through some of the programs they have and how I'm disappointed with the result, but we're about process, and I feel good about the process that we have. That all sounds good. I believe him. It's Kirby Smart. I think he's the best coach in college football. I know he's not doing nothing about it, but at the same time, it keeps happening. So why does it keep happening? I mean, and he really can't answer that. I said, why does it keep happening? And what are you doing? He said, well, yeah, I'm disappointed. Well, I know you're disappointed, but you're going to continue to be disappointed. I mean, I don't have any reason to think it's going to change. I mean, what happens in the next one? If there's another tragedy, we're talking about 24, and granted, talked to Brooks Austin, the Dogs Daily, said, 13 of those 24 were routine every day, which, not to minimize anything, but 11 of them. I speed too sometimes. Yes, we all do. I mean, and if you say you don't, you're a liar. So, but 11 of them were legitimate. We're talking about DUIs. We're talking about street racing. We're talking about going 95 and a 30. What? I want it to stop happening because, frankly, I'm tired of talking about it. We talked about this last year at SEC Media Days. It was one of the big, Kirby's going to get asked about the driving situation. And now here we are again. It's getting asked again. I think the process has probably improved, but obviously the result hasn't, and I hope it stops happening. But as for Kirby, I don't even blame Kirby at this point anymore. I think the process probably is good. I know he's doing things, I know he's punishing them, but why does it keep happening? I don't know. I can't really answer that, and he couldn't really answer that, frankly.
Georgia quarterback Carson Beck yesterday saying, yes, I have a Lamborghini, but I don't drive like an idiot.
I missed that one.
If you were an NIL machine like these players are, would the fast sports car be in the repertoire of purchases for you?
It's easy to, cast a stone from my Nissan Castle, you know what I mean? So, yes, if I were driving a Lamborghini, it'd be hard to not drive it pretty fast. Again, we all have sped, and some of us still do speed, but, yeah, I mean, when I think NIL has probably contributed to the issue in a real sense. I think there's a lot of entitlement in college football, and these players think they've always thought this, but I think especially when they're making 7-figure deals, it's like nothing's going to happen. I mean, nothing can happen to me. I mean, we saw 2 years ago there was a tragedy where a player and the recruiting staffer died. So, I mean, I want that to be out of college football. Kirby even talked about, not to me, but to a different outlet yesterday, mentioned the docking of NIL, whatever that looks like. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I think the NIL and the fact that players are making hundreds of thousands of dollars probably creeps into that at least a little bit. I mean, they've always, had nice cars, make no mistake. NIL, it's just legal now. But, I think it's definitely a factor.
All right, let's talk about a player on the Alabama roster that you are very familiar with. Ryan Williams. He left Saraland High School early, right down there in your backyard. You've interviewed him a half dozen times at WNSP 105.5. You're listening to him right down there on the Sound of Mobile app, and you're following all of Michael Brauner's coverage, Brauner, WNSP. Ryan Williams, everybody's hyped on the young man. You see his rating for EA Sports College Football 25. I thought it was 81. 85, 81, right in that range. One of the better freshmen. Kalen DeBoer and Jamarcus Shepard have said, he's running with the 4s, he's running with the 5s, but that won't last. Will Ryan Williams make an impact this year as a 17-year-old freshman, reclassified freshman?
Yeah, he'll make an impact. He's going to be too good to keep off the field, and I think he has a really good head on his shoulders, and he does all the right things. That's what high school coach Jeff Kelly at Saraland has said about him for 2 years. That's what Kalen DeBoer has said about him early, he's doing all the right things. He's saying all the right things. The process is great. He's working out hard. But at the same time, it's just like the kid skipped his senior year of high school. And, if it were like Quinn Ewers.
I was a dummy as a junior in high school.
Oh, my God. I mean, I'm 24, but that's 7 years ago, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And I think it's very hard to skip your senior year. So mentally, but just from a physicality standpoint, he's the size and frame of a senior in high school. I don't think he's this skinny twig that some people might think. I mean, he has a decent frame, but it's a lot to ask. And he didn't come in the spring either, obviously, because he had to finish graduating high school from Saraland. So I think it's a lot to ask for a kid like that. Make no mistake, he is that talented. I've watched a lot of Ryan Williams football. Relative to the competition, he's the best athlete I've ever seen in person. I don't even think it's a great, in terms of domination and being the best player on the field, it was ridiculous. It was truly a special treat to watch Ryan Williams play football at Saraland for 2 years. You should be. But given all of that, and yes, I think he's going to be a phenomenal football player at Alabama eventually. I think it's a big ask for anyone, no matter how talented, to come in as a 17-year-old essentially and make major contribution. Now, he'll be on the field. I expect 500 yards from this year if I were going to put a number to it. He'll be on the field and he'll play a factor. And he's just going to be too good to keep off the field. I have a hard time, but I'd be happy to be proven wrong, but I have a hard time believing he's going to come in and dominate right away. But he is that good, I assure you.
One more player from down in your area, and we'll finish it out with Michael Brauner. Deontay Lawson, Mobile Christian Zone. Everybody the last handful of years has been wanting, where's the head buster on Alabama's defense? Where's the alpha dog? And Deontay Lawson has done that some. I contend that, okay, he did that early in the year, but got hurt and played through it last year. But really, you see who's here today. You see Tyler Booker, Jalen Milroe, Malachi Moore. To me, it's Deontay Lawson is the one leader who's not here. Yeah. What's the expectation for the Mobile Christians guard?
Jahad Campbell probably also. I mean, two guys that put out great videos after we're not entering the portal, we're not going anywhere. So I have tremendous respect for all of those guys. But Deontay Lawson, he's a little bit different in terms of athleticism, like just sheer hitting power. He's a thumper, like your traditional inside linebacker. He
makes me think C.J. Mosley.
Yeah, I think it's a really good comparison. I mean, we've talked to his high school coach a lot too, Ronnie Cottrell of Mobile Christian, about him, and he speaks so highly of his character and what he meant to that team. I think when I got to Mobile a couple of years ago, Deontay Lawson hadn't really played much at Alabama. And then, finally it was the offseason of building up of hype last year. Deontay Lawson, because frankly, they didn't really have anyone else. And he was a highly rated recruit who stayed the course. And, and he looked every bit the part last year. There were games where he frankly took over on defense. And then he got hurt. I think it was the Mississippi State game. Jahad Campbell came in and was just ridiculous in that game. So that's why I love Lawson and Campbell. I'm so high on both of them. I think they're both NFL players. If one gets hurt, it gets a little dicey on defense. But yeah, I mean, Lawson is fun. I was hoping he would be here this week. He'd probably come on our Mobile station, but he's pretty phenomenal, man.
It's going to be a lot of fun this year covering the Alabama Crimson Tide. You're going to listen to us on the Joe Gaither Show, but you're going to listen to 105.5 right down there in Mobile, WNSP, local radio, pretty much all throughout the day. Follow Michael Brauner, M. Brauner, WNSP. Tell everybody about your morning show and who all you're with in the morning.
Yeah, I do 6 to 9, the morning show, the opening kickoff with Mark Heim and Lee Shervanian. I think we got a great product. Check us out on the Sound of Mobile app. Our afternoon show with Corey LeBounty and Nick Wiggins and Jared Bates as well. They do a great job, and we've been doing a noon show this week live from Dallas. So I think it's been a great week of content. Definitely check us out, Sound of Mobile app, if you're not in Mobile.
It's been a lot of fun. We're going to keep it rolling right here on the Joe Gaither Show at SEC Media Days in Dallas. We want to thank Derek Daniel again for sponsoring the program. Derek Daniel, State Farm, call in for your home, life, auto insurance needs, 205-758-3391. It's about to be moving season. Your college student needs renter's insurance. Derek Daniel can take care of you, 205-758-3391. We'll be back with more right here at the SEC Media Days on the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. That was my time with Michael Brauner, and I really, really appreciate him joining us. I actually spent my Wednesday morning, I was on his show at 7 a.m., so that was nice to be there, get me up bright and early, and I always appreciate being on with Michael Brauner. And again, complimenting him for putting Kirby Smart's feet to the fire, asking him about the driving issues directly in the electronic media room. I get very, very excited about hearing about Ryan Williams and Deontay Lawson. I think that both those guys, at least Deontay Lawson, will make a huge impact. And I think Ryan Williams will make several plays this season. While he may not be wide receiver one, I think he will make several plays that make Alabama fans hopeful for his future. Before we talk about our picks, we're going to go into our SEC preseason picks, 1 through 16. We'll kind of explain them just a little bit, and then we'll finish up the show by hearing from Brooks Austin from Dogs Daily, Bulldogs on SI. Before we do that, I want to tell you about our friends at Purple Turtle Roofing. They're the #1 residential roofing replacement company in Alabama and Mississippi. Whether it's addressing leaks, storm damage, or general wear and tear, Purple Turtle Roofing is going to be there to deliver exceptional roof repair for your property. Purple Turtle Roofing is the leading expert in roofing solutions, specializing in providing unparalleled service and quality craftsmanship for all your roof replacement needs. Call Dustin Foley and his team today at 877-PT-ROOF-5 for your free roof inspection. That's 877-787-6635 to schedule your appointment, and one of their qualified employees will come check out your roof for free and make sure that you're prepared for any and all of life's storms. If you want to check them out yourself, visit them online at www.roofturtle.com. Give them a call. Free roof inspection, 877-787-6635. That's Purple Turtle Roofing, and we are so thankful for their contribution being a part of our show. All right, let's keep it rolling here. On Friday, we talked about the SEC preseason picks, and we let you know how meaningful they really are, as the media has picked the right champion 9 out of 33 times. Since 1992, right? That's terrible. That's an awful percentage. 26% of the time, the media gets it right with their SEC preseason pick. Well, you go back and we talk about how the votes stacked up. The Georgia Bulldogs got 165 media members selecting them as SEC champions in 2024. So they were the pick. And we'll see if the media can make it 10 out of 34 years if the Georgia Bulldogs end up being the SEC champion. Number 2, the Texas Longhorns got 27 votes. Alabama got 12. Ole Miss got 4. We joked about it last week, but Vanderbilt got 2. LSU got 2. And South Carolina got 1. That should just show you how meaningful this poll is really taken, with Vanderbilt getting 2 selections and South Carolina getting 1. It's an absolute joke. You can chime in your SEC preseason picks, your order 1 through 16, or maybe just your top 4 if you're only interested in that, at Joe Gaither 6 on your favorite social media machine on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube. But I want to go into my picks, because on Friday we talked about first, second, third team, offense, defense, special teams, and kind of how that affected the University of Alabama. But I didn't really reveal my picks, and I walked away from Friday thinking, oh, you left some meat on the bone. So before we hear from Brooks Austin, I'm going to pull up my picks, my predicted order of finish. And again, the way that this poll was set up, the way that this Google document was sent out, was you picked the one champion, great, and then you picked all 16 teams in order. And look, you guys can get on to me if you want to for Homer Joe, but I'll just let the cat out of the bag. I was one of the 12 people that selected the Alabama Crimson Tide to win the SEC. And of course, you could say, Homer Joe, oh, things are different without Coach Saban. But I am, and I've talked about it with several of my friends, and I appreciate my man, one of my friends from church, Jay, giving me conversation yesterday about this. I think that Alabama went from a high-grade steam engine to modern racing with Kalen DeBoer. And I think that obviously Coach Saban was incredible. He's the GOAT. He's the best coach in really my generation. And you can argue if he's a better coach than Paul Bear Bryant. I'll leave that to you guys to determine. But for me, he's the best coach I have ever seen with my 2 eyes. 6 national champions, seven really, when you throw in the LSU title, 9 national championship appearances with the University of Alabama. Just incredible. but there's just a weird feel. There's just a unique feel to me, and maybe it's just unique because there hasn't been a new coach in 17 years, and I accept that as a little bit of nuance. But to me, there's a bit different vibe around the University of Alabama and the football program. There is a refreshing vibe. There is an exciting vibe. Really, when Coach Saban was in charge, there was kind of a feel of, okay, we're going to lock in, we're going to do the work, and we're just going to grind you out. We're just going to work much harder. We're just going to really put in more work than anybody in the country would. And those results would speak for themselves when you combine the high-rated recruits and boom, you add in the work and okay, you get your 6 national championships, your 9 national championship appearances. But for me, I see the same talent. Absolutely, the same talent is still in the cupboard. You've hit the transfer portal, and we've gone over that before. But you see the same talent is in the building over at the Malmore Athletic Facility. And then you combine it with a coaching staff that has, we've gone over it a dozen times, done more with less and been more player-focused, been more development-focused. With Coach Saban, we've talked about it. We talked about it with Malachi Moore during our interview. It's the pattern-matching defensive scheme. You have to check to the right check. You have to get to the right scheme. We're going to basically use our athleticism and, get to a place where, there's not much you can do offensively against the Saban defense. Obviously, there were workarounds. You got the mobile quarterback that routinely gave Coach Saban trouble, and you got the hurry-up offenses that routinely got the Alabama defense a little bit out of sorts. But I think you've moved into a coaching staff that is player-focused. That is, okay, my scheme is my scheme. Obviously, you've got the 4-2-5 swarm defense, and you've got Kalen DeBoer's vertical passing game and real power running game kind of combination. But both coaching staffs, or both sides of the ball, both sides of the football, Kalen DeBoer has operated many different offensive schemes based on the talent and personnel that he has had at his disposal at Sioux Falls, at Indiana, Fresno State, and obviously most recently at Washington. He has obviously his philosophy, we want to throw the ball deep down the field, we want to spread you out wide and vertical, and we want to implement a nice running game as well. He's got what he wants to do, but he's not really, at least in my opinion so far, he's not married to this is the Kalen DeBoer offense. You guys have to fit in, square peg, round hole, and no matter what, you got to fit in there. And same with Kane Womack. We see the 4-2-5 defense, and we've seen it kind of morph, obviously, from his father into what it is now. And he had really good success at South Alabama. Number 16 overall in total defense last year. And obviously, they're playing lesser competition, but they have lesser talent as well. I think really you see a coaching staff on both sides of the ball that says, what do my players do best? We're going to adhere to that. What do my players do well? We're going to ask them to do that. We're not going to try to get them to do things they're not comfortable with. And one thing about Coach Saban that, look, it worked to his advantage, but also a little bit, in my opinion, a disadvantage. And we went over that last week at some point when we were talking about our biggest question for Kalen DeBoer was kind of how he's going to use offensive personnel, how he's going to really use Alabama's depth. Coach Saban basically restricted playing time based on trust. And obviously, look, I'm not here to say that he did anything wrong, but what that did was at certain points, leave players out in the cold, at least for a season or two. We talked about the 2021 wide receiver crew that obviously Jamison Williams and John Mechie had Coach Saban's trust, and not really a whole lot of guys after that had Coach Saban's trust, and it ended up burning the Crimson Tide come playoff time when Mechie and Williams both suffered terrible knee injuries. I think that there's a little bit of, flexibility. Obviously, Coach Kalen DeBoer and Kane Womack are both going to have to trust their players that they put in the game. But I think that there's a little bit of flexibility to say, we want to call, power run to the left. We want to call power run to the right. We want to call, zone blocking scheme up front for the offensive line. Or we want to call man blocking scheme up front for the offensive line. But I think that both sides, particularly Kalen DeBoer, I haven't really got a whole lot of ego from him. And while Coach Saban was the best, obviously, there was certainly an air of ego. My system is the best. You guys got to fit into my system. And if you don't, sorry, kick rocks. My system is the best. And his system obviously was incredible. but I think there's a little hint of, okay, I would rather play the players that are very talented. I would rather put the athletes in good positions to succeed. And so for that reason, and maybe it is my homerism, maybe it is the fact that I live right here in Tuscaloosa and the fact that I graduated from the University of Alabama in 2018, and I've been covering the football team for 4 or 5 years, and I've been following it for many more seasons prior as well. But I think that the talent, I think Jalen Milroe is going to be just unleashed this season on college football. And I think the defensive talent is going to be good enough to adhere to the Kane Womack system and really be fit in and put into good positions. I think that what we heard from Malachi Moore was, okay, it's more, what did he call it? Vision coverage. It's less checks. It's more vision coverage. And I think the players are going to, we have our eyes more on the football, more on the quarterback is what he said on the Friday show. We got our eyes more on the quarterback. It's going to allow us to make more plays on the ball and create more turnovers. I think that you're going to have a real havoc-wreaking defense. Granted, there's probably going to be some areas that leave Alabama fans complaining, and we will obviously go over that in our Monday breakdowns coming up when the season starts. But I think that there's going to be more big play opportunity from the defense. More we're, kind of sink or swim. We're going to sell out for pressure, or I think that there's going to be more havoc plays for the defense. So, yes, I was one of the 12 people that selected Alabama as my champion. I think that the Crimson Tide has, it's a difficult schedule, but not as difficult as, the Georgia Bulldogs schedule is no joke for real. Georgia has to go to Texas, has to come to right here to Tuscaloosa. They're playing Ole Miss as well, right? Yeah, they're at Ole Miss. They got Tennessee at home, so that's going to be helpful, but they have a difficult schedule. I don't have a whole lot of faith in Florida or Auburn or Kentucky, but out of those three, you are going to need to win probably 2 out of the 3 at Texas, at Texas, at Ole Miss, and right here at Alabama to be in the SEC championship picture. Is Georgia very talented? Yes, extremely talented. And Kirby Smart is a very, very, very good coach, extremely good coach. Is he the best coach in college football? He might be. You can make that argument. I mean, obviously, his resume, he has the best resume in college football. He easily might be the best coach in college football. There are some challengers, but I'm not going to argue with you if that's your opinion. They're extremely talented, great coaching staff. I do still have question marks about Mike Bobo, but Mike Bobo will get it done at a high level throughout the whole season. He's not going to put you in terrible positions. Carson Beck, senior leader under center. They've got all the tools. A great formula. So this isn't a disparagement on Georgia, but their schedule is, in my opinion, very difficult when it comes to the top contenders in the SEC. So my list, I picked Alabama to win, right? I picked Alabama to be beating Texas Longhorns in the SEC championship game. Texas has a very favorable schedule. The Texas schedule, they don't leave the state of Texas for quite some time in the schedule. Let's look at it real quick. We're not going to go into it too in depth, but they're going to Michigan. That's going to be a hard game. But as far as the SEC standings go, right, they're playing Mississippi State at home to open it up. They've got the Red River rivalry with Oklahoma. Then they're hosting Georgia. 3 games right there in their first 3 SEC games, all in the state of Texas. Then their first SEC road game is at Vanderbilt. Ooh, scary. And they've got Florida at home. They've got Arkansas at home. They've got Kentucky at home. And then, boom, they have Texas A&M in the state of Texas. They're at Kyle Field, and obviously that's going to be a very big rivalry game, and I'm looking forward to that. But how many SEC games are outside the state of Texas? Vanderbilt? Arkansas. Vanderbilt, Arkansas are the 2 road games, really. And I say road games, I mean outside of the state of Texas. That Texas A&M game is a road game, but Kyle Field right there in the same state, and that's going to be a wild rivalry game. But really, outside of your road trip to Nashville, you're going to Arkansas. Your 2 games outside of your home state are against 2 of the worst teams in the league. Of course, that Georgia game is going to be knockdown, drag out. And I think the Oklahoma game, the Red River rivalry, will be knockdown, drag out as well. But if they can beat Georgia and maybe say they lose to Oklahoma or they lose at the end of the year to Texas A&M, right? That's going to put them right in the driver's seat. Remember, it's no divisions, right? No divisions, so one loss. I think everybody's going to incur at least one loss. I don't think there's going to be an undefeated SEC team. And of course, the Texas game at Michigan is going to be very, very challenging. That's a hard place to play. But does that matter for SEC standings? No, not one bit. Not one bit at all. So I believe that I've got Texas as my number 2 team. And we keep going. I put Georgia third for a lot of the reasons that we just danced around. Very good team, very difficult schedule. I got Missouri fourth. I think Missouri is going to end up losing the 2 games to Oklahoma and to Alabama. But I think that Oklahoma game stands as a chance for them to maybe creep into that top 3. I put Ole Miss 5. I put Tennessee 6. I put Oklahoma 7. LSU 8. A&M 9, Auburn 10, and then really from here, I was like, oh my gosh, the slop. Kentucky 11, Mississippi State 12. I put Florida 13. I put South Carolina 14, Arkansas 15, and Vanderbilt 16. I think you will see by the end of the year, Billy Napier and Sam Pittman both fired. And I think Shane Beamer is going to be close to it, going to get on the hot seat. Obviously, Shane Beamer has the youth factor, and people love him there, and he's rallied the troops there, and they've ended most of the last couple of years. They started off real slow, and they ended the year on good notes. And so I think he'll probably do the same and retain his job. But I don't really respect Shane Beamer as a high-level SEC coach. The bottom end of the SEC has a lot of ugliness. The bottom 4, really bottom 5, Mississippi State, Florida, South Carolina, Arkansas, and Vanderbilt, just disgusting. Just not good. And maybe Mississippi State will surprise me. I'm hopeful for that based on our coverage of the Mississippi State Bulldogs. You can check the Joe Gaither Show on Cowbell Corner if you want to hear me talking about the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Obviously, I always have a little bit of favor for the teams that I'm covering, so I'm hopeful that Mississippi State has a decent season. But there's my top 16. There's my SEC teams in order. Do I think that Georgia can finish much higher than third? I got them at third. Yes, absolutely. This is just my roll of the dice. And again, I want to remind you that the media is 9 out of the last 33 years picking the SEC champion. So maybe I'm going to be part of that. Maybe I'm going to be wrong. But I was one of the 12 people that selected the Alabama Crimson Tide to win the SEC. Let's finish it up by talking to my friend Brooks Austin. Brooks Austin, it was great to meet his acquaintance in Dallas, and he covers the Georgia Bulldogs. He also covers South Carolina and a couple other websites, but his primary role is Bulldogs on SI, formerly Dogs Daily. Here's my conversation with Brooks Austin out in Dallas.
SEC Media Day is continuing the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral, Alabama Crimson Tide on SI, and we're here with Brooks Austin of Georgia on SI, Georgia Bulldogs on SI. You can follow Brooks Austin. You probably already do at Brooks Austin BA on the Twitter machine. Brooks, how's your SEC Media Days week been going?
I think, apart from the Elite 11, I've always said the Elite 11 is my favorite event because I'm a nerd about quarterback play. But apart from that, this is by far my favorite event every single year. Just you really get ingratiated with the entire industry around SEC football. And it obviously, being a little biased, it's the pinnacle of college football. So this is as big as it gets with regards to like a media showing, and hey, that's what we do. So getting to come out here and shake some hands, bump some elbows while also working extremely hard is always fun.
We're talking to the who's who of media, and that's you, Brooks Austin. Absolutely it is. Don't sell yourself short. But we heard Kirby Smart on Tuesday talking about the Georgia Bulldogs setting the expectation.
Yeah.
Everybody's picking Georgia to win the SEC title this year. Can the Dogs live up the expectation and really get back into the college football playoff?
Ironically enough, their slogan, we always get a slogan from Kirby out here. The slogan this year is assume nothing. So don't assume that Georgia's going to be back and just the standard, what seems to be the standard now at Georgia in terms of, perennial dominance. However, that's what they're shaped up to be. Not very many holes on that roster from top to bottom. So, yeah, man, I think it is shaping up for another year, but more so than any year, covering Georgia, and especially under Kirby Smart's time there, this is by far the hardest schedule they've ever had. And it's particularly, I don't like to do the not close thing, but it's particularly not even close for the first time since 2005. They'll have 5 top 25 opponents on their preseason slate. So, and they open with Clemson. So it's a tough start and an even rougher finish. Their last SEC games against Ole Miss on the road. So,
all right, harder game at Alabama or at Texas?
Tuscaloosa on the road for Georgia. They haven't been out there very often. But they've never been to Austin, so I don't know. I think lines of scrimmage wise, Texas is far more ready for the SEC than I think people maybe realize. They got a couple of first-round, potential talents on both lines of scrimmage, and Sark's really prioritized that. He's gone out and recruited hard at those spots because he knows what it takes to win in this conference, and it's something I wanted to talk to him about today. Didn't have a chance to. Of just like a transition is going to be easier for y'all, or should be ideally because you've stacked your roster to contend in the SEC. It looks like an SEC roster from top to bottom. So I think earlier in the year, I would say Texas right now. Or Alabama's first. They play Texas mid-October. So probably that first test will be the hardest, I would imagine.
We heard from Carson Beck yesterday, and he said, yeah, I drive a Lamborghini, but I don't drive like an idiot. Tell us what you think about Kirby Smart and his response, because really the driving has been one of the major storylines this week in Dallas.
It's something that we talked to him yesterday in the inner beat, kind of early access we got to him. Of like, hey, man, that's what I proposed. The question to him was like, Coach, man, that y'all are as discipline gets between the lines. That everyone listens and they do what they're supposed to. They absorb coaching at Georgia at a very unique rate. Everyone talks about their talent. Their on-field execution is bar none in the sport of college football. However, y'all ain't really absorbing this one. Your players are not accepting whatever message it is. And his kind of statement was, I would love to understand why. I would love to have the answer for that. We all would. But as a coach, his job is to be process-oriented, not outcome-oriented in every aspect of their job. Make sure the processes are correct. Ultimately, you would hope that plays out in the outcomes. And he believes the processes are correct. It's been 400 days, I believe, around 400 days since that tragic incident, losing the life of a player and a staffer back in January of 2023. And since that day, they have talked about this topic, about how to handle yourselves behind the wheel. Kirby said yesterday, 162 times. 162 times during a team meeting, they have mentioned, we do not need to be doing this. And for some reason, the message is not being absorbed. And I think even for him, that's probably the most concerning thing.
We're talking to Brooks Austin of Georgia Bulldogs on SI. You're following him at Brooks Austin BA. You mentioned Elite 11, and the Alabama fans were going crazy about Elite 11. What do you know about Keelan Russell? What did you see out of Keelan Russell out there in California?
It's funny. Kalen DeBoer just got done coaching a 6'2 3/4, real long, lanky, twitchy athlete that throws a tight ball everywhere he goes. And Michael Penix on the left side, and Keelan kind of gives me those vibes in the sense that I don't think he has the biggest arm in the world, but inside of 30 yards, that kid is dialed. I mean, the ball never wobbles. Really elite life and elite arm talent on that kid, and seems to be really, really put together, not just in terms of physical stature, but from the neck up as well. So I see why. I see why it was a priority to go out there in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and flip that kid from SMU.
All right, so we've talked about Georgia a lot this week, Texas a lot this week, Alabama a lot this week. Who's the one SEC team that we're not talking about enough?
Have you seen that Missouri schedule? Because it don't look like an SEC one. The rest of these teams are like, man, we got the hardest schedule in forever. And then Missouri's like, shit, if we get past Alabama, we're going to be all right. You know what I mean? It's like, that's really it for Missouri on the road. There's an Oklahoma game, don't get me wrong, but they get that one at home. So it's not like.
And a bye week in between.
Miss Georgia. They don't draw Ole Miss. It's like, yeah, you ought to be able to handle your schedule if you get past Bama, Tennessee, and Oklahoma this year for Missouri. And when it comes to draws in this conference, that's about as easy as it gets.
All right, we've heard from the new director of college football playoff today.
Yeah.
New 12-team college football playoff coming up this year. How many SEC teams qualify for this year's playoff?
Yeah, I think is the limit still 3? I don't think you can have more than 3.
Okay. I haven't heard that aspect, but sure.
I'm pretty sure they put a stipulation. It's been changing so much with the difference in alignment or expansion, all this nonsense. But I believe the original 12-team playoff was going to have a capped limit per conference at 3. It was notoriously known as the SEC rule. If that's not there, I think you have an opportunity for 4. Right? I think you look at Georgia, Texas, Missouri, Alabama, and even Ole Miss. Those 5 teams, and maybe Tennessee. Tennessee got a tough draw and a young quarterback, but there are a bunch of teams that I think could get to a 10-3, or maybe even a 10-2, or maybe even a 9-3. get you a chance at that 11th ranked spot.
I know Alabama fans are really looking forward to that Week 5 matchup against the Georgia Bulldogs. So what's the one thing the Alabama fans need to be watching out for or worrying about when it comes to the Georgia Bulldogs?
Just how efficient and how much more room for growth there could potentially be for a guy like Carson Beck. He completes 73% of his balls last year in the first year starting. Set for 3 years. It was pretty well covered. The only player in his signing class at that point from the 2019 signing class to never have either started or transferred from the school that he ended up signing. He's one of one in today's world of college football in terms of waiting your turn and buying your time and earning your right to go. So the idea that that guy could ultimately be better and should be better in year 2 is a little bit daunting. On top of that, you got guys like Ra Thomas and Dominic Lovett, who, they were there last year, but year 2 in this Bobo offense, you expect to see a little bit of growth there as well. And then the addition of Trevor Etienne. But most importantly, and Alabama fans know this, but that is a line of scrimmage at Georgia that is daunting on the offensive side of the football. It's not just the beef, man. It's the talent, too. I think they got 7 or 8 guys that are going to play on Sunday just in that one room. And that front five is as good as anybody in college football.
Tell everybody about the new site now, Georgia Bulldogs on SI.
Yeah, man, been hanging out with SI now for 5 years, and Georgia Bulldogs on SI finally hit. We were Bulldog Maven. We were Dogs Daily on SI.com, and now, Georgia Bulldogs on SI. So it's got a smooth ring to it, man. It's got a smooth ring.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah,
We'll catch up with you soon.
No doubt, man.
Absolutely.
That was Brooks Austin joining us, and we appreciate all his time. We appreciate Michael Brauner as well for joining us at SEC Media Days. We're going to wrap up our program right there by thanking Derek Daniel one more time. Derek Daniel, for all of your insurance needs, you can call him at 205-758-3391. If you got a family, if you're married, you got somebody who's depending on you for income, you absolutely need life insurance, and he can hook you up with a great rate, give you proper coverage in case, goodness gracious, anything bad happens to you or your family. We appreciate Derek Daniel for sponsoring the program. You can call him at 205-758-3391 or visit him in person at 4604 Highway 69 North, Northport, Alabama, 35473. He's got great agents, Victoria, Red, Reese. They'll be happy to talk to you on the phone about all of your insurance needs. That's State Farm, Derek Daniel, right here in Tuscaloosa. We also appreciate Purple Turtle Roofing. We're going to get out of here for the day. Tomorrow's program, I believe we will talk to our friends from Texas and Oklahoma. We had 2 great interviews from SEC Media Days with reporters who cover both Texas and Oklahoma. I'll be on the road with my cousin James. We'll talk about that in between. That'll be our program for tomorrow. We cannot wait to bring you another edition of the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com.